Yeah, my name is Emmanuel Nkuna from Soweto. I'm a member of the ANC in good standing from branch Commander Kofifi in Ward 135.
And can you detail your involvement in the liberation movement and the MK?
Yeah, I grew up in Soweto, and first I was inspired because I had two uncles. The other one was on Robben Island, the other one was in exile already at the time. Where I think in 1979, 1978, I was a member of AZAPO because at the time it was the only organization that was operating above ground. The ANC was banned, the PAC was banned, and many other organizations. And through my being inspired by my two uncles, as I've already mentioned, I had to make a contribution, and I became a member of AZAPO until when the then president of AZAPO was expelled from the organization for being a member of the African National Congress. That was Curtis Nkondo. In 1979, then I was arrested for political activism, and I spent 9 months in KZN Central Prison. After that, when I was released, I then was informed, at that time that I should leave the country by one comrade, Andrew Shitlaba, who was from Robben Island, together with Mr. Mashaba, Comrade Mashaba, who died in exile, I think around 80 or 81. And I was advised to leave the country in 1979. And I went through Botswana. When I was supposed to go to Angola at that time, there was what we call Umkatashinga, meaning during that time they had to evacuate the camp, and from there I received my military training, went to Cuba and back to Botswana and infiltrated the country for the first time in 1983.
And when you infiltrated, what was your objective?
The objective of my infiltrating the country was specifically to look out for would-be askaris or sellouts, people who were selling our people out.
And when, through the course of identifying these sellouts or spies, as we call them, in what positions did you usually find them in? What capacity? Were they infiltrating student unions and other political organizations?
I'll just give you an example. One typical example that in Soweto at the time, there were very notorious policemen who seem to have permission to kill. Hlubi, for instance. It was people like those that one was tasked to monitor and for whatever purpose that the African National Congress deemed fit at that time. So they were all over. They were all over the show. And I mean, during the time that I had to do all these things, I'll give you an example. I had to find myself working for the Kentucky Fried Chicken out in Randburg.
And this was while you were already deployed?
Yes. So the person that we were looking for was working in the Randburg Magistrate Court or Police Station, stationed in Randburg. I had to go to Randburg and find a way of identifying him. And I found myself working or employed by the Kentucky Fried Chicken as a cook, as I refused to be trained as a manager at the time. So I worked as a cook there to monitor, and indeed we managed to detect it and report it back to Lusaka.
It's my understanding that you were involved in the CADA summit and the summit which resulted in the drafting of the TS 2025.
Yes.
Can you tell us what your involvement was?
Well, my involvement in there was, it started when I inquired from comrades that I knew who were most senior to me. And some of them were those that I was with, for instance, in Lusaka, and as well as in the ANC headquarters, Shell House. When seeing what is actually was happening in the movement, the divisions, contestations, and everything that really was to me an ANC.
And by divisions, you're speaking of factionalism.
Factionalism, yes, indeed. Factionalism, the use of money to buy votes, and so on. So I called quite a number of senior comrades in the African National Congress at the time. Just inquiring, knowing very well where we were, where we come from, and what we were fighting for. What is it that we were fighting for? My question was, why did you volunteer? Why did you sacrifice your youth? Everything that socially, your family and so on, and left the country and joined the African National Congress and fought and did whatever you would have done. My question to them was, were you mad? Was there something wrong with your thinking that today there is so much divisions in the African National Congress? Our people are losing hope in the African National Congress. We are here sitting quiet. What is it? Were you mad? And it was after I had, like I've said, that I had called quite a number of comrades, asking them the same question. And some of them I would say, no, I'm asking you, were you mad when you left your country and so on and so on? Now for you to be quiet when things are not going right in the movement. So that's when I was informed that there is a summit. And I attended, that's how I attended the summit.
When you say that members of the ANC, and not just members in my opinion, I think people who've believed in the mission, the historic mission of the ANC, are losing hope. Do you think this loss of hope is a direct result of the failures of the leadership of the ANC?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is because the African National Congress leadership have actually lost direction. Maybe for me, to use a better way to say, you can't have the National Executive Committee that comprises 100 plus heads together being unable to unite and to direct the organization as well as the people.
Do you believe the current leadership of the ANC is capable of uniting the organization?
Never. I can tell you now, they are not. And that is why, the only solution that can bring the African National Congress back is when they leave. They must just resign as National Executive Committee members. The entire NEC must just leave.
And what would be the course of action for the ANC if that were to happen?
The course of the African National Congress, if that happens, one will be able to unite the African National Congress and renew the organization. Because we have the turnaround strategy that came out from the summit, that as a program that will then give direction to what actually needs to happen. We cannot for sure expect the NEC that is divided to unite the African National Congress. It's impossible.
That the NEC, the current NEC and leadership of the ANC, they've been actively speaking since Ramaphosa came. This mantra of renewal, it doesn't seem anything has been done about it. Do you think that they've been compromised in their goal of renewal, or it was never an actual goal of theirs to renew and unify the ANC?
It was never their goal. They are divided first and foremost, and they are actually highly compromised. Because if you go back, let me just take you back. The first national consultative conference of the African National Congress in Durban. Mm-hmm. That's where we realized there was a crack. That's where we realized there is a problem. And if that problem was not going to be attended to, we certainly were going to find ourselves in the very same situation that we are right now.
Do you believe that these leaders who are compromised, are they compromised politically, or have they taken money from private individuals to fulfill their agendas within government?
Indeed. I mean, there are quite several times when the African National Congress did not or could not respond as a collective that would have been elected in a conference. 2016, when we lost the local government elections, when leaders of the ANC were asked questions, they will speak in different languages. There was no coherence in all what they said. One will say one thing, the other one will be saying something else. And that has never happened in the African National Congress before. So indeed, they are compromised. All of them. When I say all of them, because when we say you are compromised because you have taken money, money is being used to compromise you. Others will say, but I'm not involved in corruption. You know, when you get arrested for having committed a crime, there will be witnesses and accomplices. When you go to court, they say, Emmanuel, you are guilty. And then so and so, you are also guilty. And one you argue that, but I did not commit the crime, but they said you are an accomplice.
So you believe the leaders who are compromised, be it politically or financially, may not be implemented directly in corruption, but are aiding and abetting corruption?
Yeah, there are those who unaware. There are those in the NEC who are not aware that what they are doing was compromising them. And there are those who actually are in the National Executive Committee who were planted in the ANC, first and foremost. And the majority are people who were not there during the struggle. Those who were in the struggle, for instance, Gwede Mantashe, for instance. This man is a man who was a shop steward, the General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers, the Secretary General of the African National Congress. Now, he was a leader in the union, fighting for
The workers.
workers. And he then became a General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers.
So he wasn't previously involved in the ANC?
No,
or MK?
whether he was involved or not, because I wouldn't know. I'm just making an example, a very typical example. As we speak right now, people like him, if you go to the Eastern Cape, Eqolowe, the community was complaining that you can't come and mine in our area without our involvement. They took that matter to court, and the community won that case. He, as an individual, as a Minister of Minerals and Energy, said he was going to challenge that the decision of the judiciary.
So he was opposed to the involvement of the local community in mining in their own community.
As a uplifter, those he was supposed to listen and find a way of ensuring that as mining happens in their area,
The community benefits.
the community benefit 100%.
So when we speak about compromised leaders who are currently leading the ANC today, it becomes more evident when you give such examples of leaders who are seemingly selling out communities to private sector and private individuals. With the turnaround strategy of 2025, how will it address these issues that result from that course of action? For instance, communities being sold out to private corporations for mining, land being stripped away from communities for private sector use and such.
You know, we always say we have the most the constitution of our country is so good that you cannot touch. But here is my assertion to say that if the ANC, some of the leaders were not compromised, they're talking about the township economy. What does that actually mean? My understanding or the turnaround strategy is to rectify all that. Because you cannot tell me that you are developing the township economy when you bring malls to the township and use for employment. They are not assisting in agriculture. They're not assisting our people in agriculture. They're not doing anything that was actually supposed to be done. You know? So they're just compromised. They're working for other people and they cannot, there is nothing that they can do because they are told what to do and what to say.
Do you think they've failed only with industries and trades such as farming? What's your view on the failure, like you said, the township economies, as they like to call them? How they bring in bigger developers to develop businesses, which cut out small and local businesses in the townships. But even the local businesses, we find that majority of them are run by foreign nationals, and many of them illegal immigrants. Also, we look at the education system we have in our country, where we have two education systems. We have a private system and a public system, but the public system, obviously only accessible to lower income groups, doesn't provide the same standard of education as the private system.
Yeah. On the question of industry and business into townships, I'll tell you, for instance, who build bridges in our country today? Who build the very same RDPs? What they are doing is that because they've got power and all this money comes to them, they are the ones who are supposed to determine how and where this money must go in terms of development. Against the, how do I put it, but against the system, or using a system to say for this to happen, they have to assist, because even the education system, it's not assisting in what actually should be driving development in terms of upliftment of our people.
Do you believe that is part and parcel of the two education system?
In one country, in a democracy, you can imagine, we have two systems of education in a democratic country. Then, but how is that possible? Because this is not exactly what we would have been fighting for. We're fighting for free education, meaning one system in a democracy, the education.
Part of that issue of education, the way I see it, is employment as well. Because South Africans are seemingly not skilled to participate in the management sector. We see specialized labor being imported from all over the world. But students and people who are trained to do those jobs in South Africa are being overlooked for those positions. Do you think it is an immigration problem as well? Do you think the government hasn't done enough in limiting the importing of skilled labor, and even with border control? Because we see as well unskilled labor is now falling majority to foreigners. South Africans are also being overlooked for low skilled jobs as well as specialized jobs.
Not that they have tried anything. They have tried nothing. All what they did was to do to make sure that they benefit first as individuals before considering the people. Now, in the turnaround strategy, clear, we're saying something has to be done here. It's not that we do not have skilled people. We have them in abundance. They are unemployed. That we have graduates who are unemployed, who are also not given a chance, for training or gaining that experience of what they would have studied. So there is no way that they have failed. They haven't tried. They did nothing in that sport. That is why we find ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves in right now.
Now, with you saying they haven't tried at all, clearly they have overlooked the issue of border security, job security for South Africans. In light of this, how do you think the general public view something like Operation Tutula, whereas people are now taking it upon themselves to rid their communities of illegal immigrants who are taking advantage of our South African economy, our state's resources in terms of public health care? How do you see it?
Operation Tutula, as things stands now, it is a ANC Umkhonto Wesizwe initiative. Now, it is hijacked. All of a sudden, you have people who are now parading as genuine South Africans, them protecting or wanting to get rid of what they call foreign nationals. And remember, we're speaking of Africans here. These people are not foreigners. Can't be a foreigner in Africa, being an African. It can't be. It is a planned. It is planned to create further divisions, not only in South Africa, but even in the continent. So, to create a situation that South Africans are xenophobic, and yet that is not the case. Operation Tutula now, because it started in Durban, and all those comrades who were part and parcel of Operation Tutula were pursued by the police. But when it comes to Johannesburg, the police were accompanying this Operation Tutula all of a sudden to terrorize our people, and so that it's like a gangster. It has nothing to resolve, or it has nothing to do with the resolving problems or the resolution of us participating in the economy of our country.
Do you believe while government is seemingly turning a blind eye to these issues of immigration and border security, that the situation will only get worse?
The situation will get worse. Because, like I said before, there is no coherence. The president will say this today, tomorrow he changes and says something else. And the nation must actually accept it as it. It can't be. This is one of the concerted plans of the apartheid regime or white monopoly capital to make sure that Africans, South African Africans never unite, because when they unite, once they are united, they know what is coming for them.
So with regards to the policies and implementation of the policies of the turnaround strategy of 2025, are you of the opinion that the NEC and current leadership of the ANC are capable of bringing about the change those policies seeks to bring?
Oh, never. No. No. They won't. They're not capable of doing that. I mean, how do you expect if we are divided? I'll just a typical example. In a family, the mother and the father are not in good terms. Do you think the children will be in good terms among themselves as a children of a particular family? It's not possible. Now, you cannot expect the African National Congress National Executive Committee to resolve this thing, because they are also divided.
So if the current leadership is incapable, do you believe for the credibility of the ANC, their removal is essential?
Absolutely. The removal is essential. If we today there is that, how do I put it? If we say as a nation or as the African National Congress that there must be a renewal and generational mix, ne? And I've already alluded to the fact that we do have a lot of capable and highly qualified, specialized students with degrees who are unemployed, who are not working. So if they move, we have these young people, we have young leaders who are coming after us, who are there, they are there, who can do the work, who knows, who understand the African National Congress. They are not the only ones who understand and know the ANC, because certainly the majority of them are planted in there. They are compromised.
So I think just to conclude our brief interview, I'd just like to ask you, in your opinion, the next step immediately before national conferences or anything this year, what do you think the NEC needs to do?
If you don't have, you see, I've got a problem there. I cannot think for the NEC. I'll tell you why. They do not have a plan for renewal. They do not have a program for renewal, and they are because they are divided. So I really don't see them doing anything constructive to unite the African National Congress and the people in general. Remember, the African National Congress is a liberation movement. During difficult times, when nobody wanted to be associated with the African National Congress, there was no money, but people volunteered even to die. People volunteered to sacrifice their families, friends, and everything that there was.
And you think today it's the opposite?
Very much so. Very much so. Because what is happening right now, because nothing is implemented, but I'm saying what the ANC National Executive Committee thinks they want to implement, they're coming with committees and committees and committees. They're not going to help us with anything. they're not going to help us with anything. So the solution is that they must just all leave. And if they're true members of the African National Congress, they'll do that without being pushed. They'll do that.
No, that's it.
Thank you.